John Lewis, I thought was dreadful this year. I know that you feel the same. I don't even know where to begin.
Well, it's that time of year when we grab a Christmas hat, a cup of good cheer, we huddle around the computer screen to see the latest offering from retailers. Yes, it is the season for the Christmas adverts.
Yes. We're going to be offering our opinions. These are just our opinions. We know there's going to be a lot of marketing agencies and other reviewers like us looking at this. So these are just our opinions on the top two best ones that we thought were great this year and the top two worst ones that we thought were dreadful this year.
So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, starting off with a very controversial one. John Lewis, I thought was dreadful this year. I know that you feel the same. I don't even know where to begin, really. All I can say is what was it that I watched. I don't know what I'm meant to be feeling. I don't feel inspired. It's not necessarily feel good. I know that it has the feel good sort of vibe and look, but the story just didn't hit home for me. Usually after watching a John Lewis ad, I feel either really emotional, really happy, really sad, whatever it is. Usually happy. But after this one, I just don't even know what was going on. The cinematography was good, like I say, it had the look of a feel-good sort of thing and was very John Lewis-y, but the story just baffles me.
I know. For me, it was a heavy heart. You know, I wanted John Lewis to give me Christmas, and I feel like I got a lump of coal instead. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of people online. It was interesting. As we record this is the day that it was released. We've kind of seen a lot of online chatter. And I'm not the only one. I don't think we are the only ones. No. In fact, our whole office, I think, was the same. In a world where it's very sad at times, it's very political at times, we really want those kind of feel-good factors, and some call them the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah.
And I think I was anything but warm and anything but fuzzy. It kind of left me feeling a little bit like John Lewis, I think, as a brand is going through a bit of an identity crisis anyway, and the Christmas offering this year almost kind of reaffirmed that for me. And it was just a bit oddball. You know, when I think Christmas, I don't think of a Venus flytrap. And I can appreciate from a creative choice, it was very much a what's the word? I guess an odd choice.
Yeah.
You know, let's go with something completely unchristmas. Bold could be another word that's used, but I think overall, John Lewis kind of almost went backwards this year when other retailers, as we'll get onto, really upped their game. And I think, unfortunately, we could probably do a whole video on this, but as someone who set the benchmark and the gold standard for Christmas videos,
have led it for years.
John Lewis, in our opinion, purely our opinion, remember in the comments below, put yours in there, but we feel that they kind of dropped the ball on that. So it wasn't necessarily the worst offender, and we're going to come on to that in just a moment. Again, David and I have very strong views on this, but ultimately John Lewis, I think, was more in our top two, more out of disappointment, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what really set it so low this year. They've had such a good few years. I mean, more than a few years. And this year was just, I don't know what happened.
You and I have sat and talked about how many Christmas videos from John Lewis and picked out key ones.
Yeah.
We've said things like, I call it the Lily Allen video, but it was the Lily Allen cover of the Keen track animation from years ago. The Elton John one as well, I think, is just an absolute belter. And yet this year's one, I think, falls very short of that gold standard. So, sorry, John Lewis, you failed us. Harsh but true, but obviously just our opinion. However, as I said, there weren't the only people to kind of offend on the disappointment front.
So, our next worst ad, and I feel really bad for saying it, is Cafe Nero. Now, I love Cafe Nero, I love coffee, as do you, Dan.
Yeah.
But I think their ad this year started off really good, and I could see where it was going. I think the premise was really good, but the lady acting in it, she was a good actor, I think, but she just slowly reminded me of the overly attached girlfriend meme, and looks like her as well. And then just as we got further into the ad, it just went downhill. I think the last nail in the coffin for me was the barista at the very end. I mean, before doing any research, I thought he was just an unlucky minimum wage employee that was just caught out on a Thursday night on a clothing shift. And I'm not saying I know how to act, but I think the acting ruined the ad for me, especially at the very end. I don't think it had really built up to anything for me to be able to forgive poor acting. I think it just went downhill.
I mean, you say it right. I love coffee. I love a Christmas drink. I mean, they may not be for everyone, but love a Christmas drink. However, I just feel like Cafe Nero went to Cafe Zero for me because it really just, it was too early, it was badly acted. I think the concept should work.
Yeah.
Simplicity-wise, brilliant. It wasn't overly fussy. I think it was let down by maybe a bad script, bad acting. And I think it's very interesting that a coffee company has come out with an ad. If you look at the other major kind of two companies of Starbucks and Costa, they've kept it very much standard for them in terms of in-store marketing and kind of adverts online and things like that. So Nero's taken a bold choice. We've got to give them credit for that. Has it paid off? I don't think so. I think it will probably end up in the cringe bin of Christmas ads. And unfortunately, I think, whilst we don't want to single people out, the acting was something that both of us almost independently came together and were like, yeah, it's just very bad acting. So, sorry, Cafe Nero, try harder next year, but love what you kind of started, but it wasn't quite meeting the mark. So, sadly, they're our top worst performing ads, we feel, in terms of what they give. And I have to admit, it sounds a little bar humbug of us to kind of critique Christmas ads, but we work in marketing. What can we do? Switching gears, obviously, to the best, the creme de la creme of ads. Quite surprising this year. I mean, I feel like we all came into it as an office with our relevant significant others, kind of saying the same name of who we thought would be smashing it out of the park. And I think I'm right in saying that we've probably been proven wrong, which is amazing.
I think so, yeah.
So I mean, in terms of the number one, if we want to call it, or one of the top two, I don't think we've necessarily ranked them as such. There is a blog post, we should say, on the redPepper website. We will link it down below. Not on the table, obviously, but down below. Please go and have a read of it, because it's got a much more in-depth kind of breakdown of everyone in the office and what our opinions are. But surprisingly, our number one was none other than Amazon. And I mean, for me, Amazon gave me what John Lewis didn't. It gave me the warm and fuzzies, it gave me hope, it gave me cheer, it gave me Christmas. And I think, in the nicest possible way, it was nice to see an older generation taking the lead, with the younger generation almost looking on, which was quite an interesting concept. If you haven't seen it, we will link in the description below most of our choices. But yeah, for me, I think it gave me the brilliance of the John Lewis ads from yesteryear, but also was quite, again, a simple concept. It was very good in terms of, it wasn't necessarily peddling a Christmas product as such. It does put a product in there, and we won't spoil it if you haven't seen it. But it was done in a very Amazon way, and it was done with a slightly festive twist to it. But for me, I think storytelling was brilliant, simple. Loved the friendship between the three main characters. It was very clear, even in the way they acted it, that these friends had been around for years. And I loved it,
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see where Amazon take next year's one.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, last year's one was good. We'll link that one down below as well because that's great. There was the snow globe and this relationship between the dad and the daughter, and they've done a similar thing, like you can get anything on Amazon. That was sort of the idea behind it. And yeah, I think that's the only one that I can remember from Amazon. So I think they are learning from people like John Lewis or other retailers from around the world that have got that similar sort of reputation for their Christmas ads. It would just be good to see where they take it in the next few years. I just love the simplicity of this year's one.
Yeah.
You don't need to go overboard like some of the other ads have done. Really simple, 1 or 2 locations. One location at the field, the other location back at home where she receives the Amazon parcel. That's it. That's all she needed to do. She didn't need to say anything. She didn't need to do anything over the top. But it just hit all the right heartstrings. I think it hit.
I think it's kind of important before we move on to our second choice to say actually all the retailers have taken a very different approach this year. Some have been very similar. Some have used big names. I mean, we all love a bit of Bublé, or Bublé, I should say. And Asda was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. Again, link in the description below for the blog post that will go into a lot more detail as to perhaps why it didn't hit our top 2. I mean, our second one, I mean, for me, this is a controversial statement that I know we haven't spoken about, but for me, there was a real fine line between the M&SFood advert, which is our second choice, and the Waitrose food advert.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing I love about the M&SFood advert is, I mean, I love Christmas food, full stop. But I love the fact that they took a concept that they've used in at least 1 year, if not 2 years, which is the Dawn French kind of Christmas fairy. And they've kind of built this Christmas branding for the last couple of years. I think it's a great kind of showcase of if a branding works, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to do something different every year.
Yeah.
And I think with the ad this year, they've obviously brought back Dawn French, who I love. She's fantastic. This year they've put a really good spin on it. If you're not familiar with Welcome to Wrexham or Wrexham Football Club, there's a lot of buzz around it because 2 actors, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, had bought that club, done amazing things in the last 2 years. So it's in the cultural zeitgeist, these 2 characters, for a very different reason from their acting day job. But to bring them in as voices, I think, is a little bit of a spin and a little bit of a nod to culture. I mean, I've put here in my notes, it adds a bit of magic and sparkle. This is not an ad, just to say. And it, in a kind of really good and an intelligent way of doing it, while showcasing the Christmas food for this year.
Yeah.
It's not too off-piste to be something that we might say, okay, this is a weird concept. And I think I'm going to kind of do a bit of a side honourable mention with Waitrose as well.
Yeah.
They've done a brilliant job at bringing that warm, fuzzy Christmasness.
Yeah.
If that's a word, to an advert, using the brilliant Graham Norton. But I think for me, M&S just pips it for me because I think it's perfectly Christmas.
Yeah.
It's a great product vehicle, but I think also they've used that lovely injection of star power just to underlie it without being overbearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I just Dawn French, Rob McElhenney, and Ryan Reynolds, just such a good. They're not a trio. There's the duo plus Dawn French, but it just makes a great ad. And I think what's nice about it is, like with last year's one, that the animation's great, and I don't think it relied on the stars faces to be in there for you to get that warm feeling and to connect with it. They're just great with their voice acting as well. It's great.
It brilliantly shifts away from, like I was saying, with the star power underneath it.
Yeah.
In a weird way, it subverts what some other adverts have done. And actually, for M&S, while we're touching on that, their clothing advert almost reverses that. They've got some really big names within that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they've really planned how these two different ads work for their company.
That's true.
So I think, you know, kudos to you, M&S. You've done a blinder this year. And obviously, there are a wealth of Christmas ads. Like November kicked in, and we barely got out of bonfire night, and we were getting
they were there.
Christmas ads left, right, and centre. One of the ones that we really thought stood out, and we've kind of done an honourable mention. It's almost unfair to do it as that, because actually it's not a retailer, it's a charity. We would encourage you, again, link in the description below. But Shelter came through with an absolute corker of an advert. It tugs on the heartstrings in a way that actually a retailer doesn't. And I think, you know, we all love our Christmas, as I've said many times over this video. It can be very easy to get swept up with the magic of Christmas and the kind of traditions and presents, tints, and all of that kind of stuff. But actually, sometimes for people, Christmas can be really difficult. And what I loved about the Shelter video, and we both kind of said this, was the intelligent way they told a very real story.
Yeah.
It does jar, it does shock, but it does it in a way that doesn't glamorize, and again, no spoilers, but the girl's experience. It just makes you think. And I think the amount of times we've seen this 2 or 3 times now, and I think it's both a thought provoker and probably one that will stick with me for a while. It's memorable for a different reason, but which is why we wanted to drop it in here as an honourable mention. But yeah, do check it out. I mean, what are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, I think they absolutely nailed it this year. I don't think I've seen an advert from Shelter before. I think this might be the first one that I've seen pop up in front of me, and it sucks you into the girl's story. You get invested in her as a character, and you want to, or because you know that it's Christmas, you almost want to see this nice like fantasy dream world sort of thing at the end of it, but then you don't. It just slaps with the facts, really.
Absolutely.
And like you say, it's just jarring. Gets such a good message in there, but just the storytelling was perfect.
And I think that's the thing with all these Christmas videos is we see it as marketeers and we kind of go, okay, how is this going to impact their Christmas? How is this going to kind of roll into sales? And ultimately for us as well, for our clients, you know, Christmas ads, Christmas anything really can make or break a season. And sometimes it's nice to have that palate cleanser that just makes you stop and think. And Shelter, well done, bravo. That's a great one. So there you have it. You have our top 2 best and worst videos and our honourable mention. As always, if you agree, disagree, drop a comment in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a like, and also subscribe to our channel. We are only so many subscribers at the moment, and we want to grow this channel, so there's going to be some more content coming over Christmas and into the new year, so please do drop a subscription. You'll be the first to know when we drop that. Otherwise, that's our video. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.